Now called to order. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Pavoni?
Here.
Ms. Perez?
Here.
Mr. McGurven?
Here.
Ms. Switchy?
Here.
Mr. Person? Mr. Prince?
Here.
Mr. Corman?
Here?
Roll call, Mr. Mayor, one absent.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Pavoni.
I move that we excuse the absent council member.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Pavoni, second by Mr. Prince, that council excuse Councilmember Person. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. So we're going to start the meeting off today with a very special proclamation.
Okay, proclamation. Whereas Dr. Gary F. Colvis, Chairman of the Board and a Director of First Financial Northwest Bank, will be retiring effective June 14, 2017, and has served the bank for over 40 years. And whereas Gary has provided steadfast leadership and guidance and has also been instrumental in empowering and encouraging the bank's executive team, which ultimately contributed to the strength and success of the bank. And whereas Gary has also served as Executive Director and Trustee of the First Financial Northwest Foundation since its formation in 2007, guiding the foundation as it has made a difference in Renton and other adjacent communities through its donations to various charitable causes, including those related to health, education, human services, and the arts. And whereas, in addition, Gary has been involved in and has given an immeasurable amount of personal time to a number of Renton civic organizations, including serving as past president and being a current member of the Renton Rotary Club. And whereas Gary has shown his devotion to the Renton community and its residents by his many acts of service and valuable contributions, now therefore I, Dennis Law, Mayor of the City of Renton, do hereby proclaim June 5th, 2017 to be Gary F. Colvis Day in the City of Renton, and I encourage all citizens to join me in this special observance as we wish him the best in his retirement. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Renton to be affixed this 5th day of June, 2017, signed Dennis Law, Mayor of the City of Renton.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Corman.
I move that council concur in the proclamation.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Corman, second by Mr. Pavoni, that council concur with this proclamation. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. So I'd like to say a couple of words before Jay Covington presents this proclamation to Gary. And I can, if you look at him in the back of the room, he's squirming right now. But in all truthfulness, there are lots of reasons to recognize Gary for the service that he has provided to this community, well above the bank. But his contributions to the bank, with the bank, have been tremendous and have created a lot of great opportunities and programs for the city. But in addition to the 40 years with the bank, he served 23 years as a Renton School Superintendent. As was mentioned in the proclamation, he was one of the founding members and president of the Renton Community Foundation, and did an equal amount of work and continues to with the Renton Rotary Club in terms of working to raise money for charitable organizations and charities that are helping people that are less fortunate in the community. He served as the elected commissioner of Valley Medical Center for 12 years, representing our community, and continues as a board member of the UW Medicine. And everybody who knows Gary knows that he and Betty have been huge supporters of this community for many years. And so it's really great for us to have an opportunity to honor him. So we're honored, Gary, to present you this proclamation tonight. Come on up. So I want you two to face the camera and take so you can get your picture taken. So Gary, yeah, you're welcome to have the podium.
My boy,
Yeah, I don't want to have to set the timer, but we can, and I have a police officer in the back who can help us out if need be.
Thank you, Mr. Lau, that you tempered your comments to appropriate kinds of things. It's well that they honor us when we get a little older, when we're not in our prime, when we have a little more feisty, a little more aggressive involved in things. This must be a very peaceful meeting too. I don't see much controversy here, I'll tell you. This is, they've been different for sure. Well, obviously, just some comments about the bank. I think you people all know about the bank. It's nice that I was selected to be a board member on a very successful bank, obviously, before I ever got there. The bank was formed in 1923 as a Washington Chartered Savings and Loan, and between 1923 and now, we've had probably 6 or 7 name changes. Sometimes they're a federal charter, sometimes we're a Washington charter. We are now, of course, First Savings Bank, First Northwest Savings Bank. Actually, a lot of people in the community think we should have renamed it probably Harry's Bank.
Harry's Bank.
Because if you ask old Rednights about anything here and ask them, you know where Harry's Bank is, they might not know where First Financial Northwest is. But in any event, there's been many, many changes to bank. I think when I was first on the bank, we loaned money only to 1 to 4 occupancy units, and all of the loans needed to be within the Renton School District. And believe me, with Harry, we visited every loan that the bank was going to make at the board meetings. We got in his car and we visited those. I think when I first came on the board was the footings were somewhere a little less than $40 million. We are now a little over $1 billion, to give you an indication. Lots of changes. We have moved in the direction for survival purposes to a fairly traditional community bank. We are obviously not labored exclusively to the Renton School District anymore. We are loaning in multiple states. Our book of loan opportunities has expanded significantly. We now have a significant wealth management. We are now in aviation lending, if you can believe that. The banking business has changed. We've been a single branch bank, people can't believe it, for many, many years. Just within the last couple of years, we've expanded, and by the end of this year, we will be 10 branches. We've moved, I think you know, as to the Landing and to Mill Creek, to Edmonds. We'll be soon opening in Bellevue and Bothell, and we've acquired 4 additional banks that will be announced. We've announced the opening, but not who we're buying them from later. Changed very much. Banking business itself is hard to get people into banks anymore. You know, the millennials, most of them can't find their own bank. You know, they've never been there. And that goes for my kids and certainly my grandkids. You know, they don't see any big deal with going in banks. They don't need to do anything anymore. These high-tech people does everything at home and on their phone and that kind of thing. So banks, too, have changed. So for survival, and obviously with a fairly significant recession we all went through, changes had to be made. So we're delightful. There's been only 3 CEOs since I've been with the bank. Obviously, there was Harry for many, many years, and Vic Karpiak, and obviously Joe Kiley now. So there's been a lot of stability in the bank. I think I'm leaving the bank in great hands, in great stability, and I hope it continues many years forward to be as helpful and supportive of the Renton community as it's been in the past.
Great.
And thank you very much for this, very kind words, and I appreciate it very much. Thank you.
You bet. Well, thank you, Gary. And, you know, we can't, go ahead. I don't think there's a way for us to really capture all the things that the bank has done in this community over the years under your leadership, Harry's leadership, Victor, and Joe Kiley, and it continues. And it really makes a difference in the lives of a lot of people. So, you know, we have some big banks represented in our city. You don't get the same thing as you do from a hometown bank. And so we really appreciate all you've done. And want to congratulate you for 40 years of service to the bank, but also all the other things you do in the community. So thank you very much.
It's been fun. There's less than half the banks operational now than there was before the recession. That tells you how difficult it was to survive. We are delighted to survive that. Telling people, you know, most of the bank experience has been very delightful. A little bit has not.
Yeah, right.
Of course, we made it through that. We were successful, and we came out the other end, I think, far stronger than we went in.
Yeah, very true. Thanks, Gary. We're probably going to see a mass exodus now, but that's okay, because we're going to move on to a public meeting on annexations.
Your prediction worked.
Yeah.
Patty,
Good evening, Council. Angie Mathias here with the city, working in the Community and Economic Development Department. And we've received an annexation petition for Eric Ressler 2, and so I'm here to present information about that proposed annexation. So the annexation process is a very long process, and we are at almost the very, very beginning. The petitioner has submitted that 10% petition to the city clerk, and now we're meeting with council. So state law requires this meeting, and you all are going to decide whether or not to accept the annexation, reject it, or geographically modify the proposed boundary. If you accept it, then you also would authorize the circulation of a 60% direct petition to the proponent. And then on this annexation, this is the first time that we've had a request to waive the annexation fee. 2017, we implemented a new annexation fee, and this proponent has requested that we waive that annexation fee, and I'll have more on that later. So the location of this annexation is in the East Plateau Community Planning Area at the eastern portion of the existing city limits. It's about 4.3 acres in size. The uses are all just single family. It's pretty much exclusively made up of parcel lines, but the eastern one is in the portion in the vicinity of 164th Avenue Southeast. The southern one is near 134th Southeast, and then the west one is near 162nd Avenue Southeast. So here's an aerial of that annexation, and you can see a large parcel within a single small parcel. It's just two parcels, and then extends beyond one to include the full right-of-way. So there are some slopes in the area, but none would constitute something that would be regulated by our critical areas. That would have to be triggered by RED, or 40% or greater. So there are some that are sensitive that they'll have to pay attention to if the area were to redevelop, but nothing that would constitute critical areas. There are no streams in the vicinity. However, there are some wetlands. You can see this large wetland to the north. That's about 800 feet to the north. And then there's a couple of smaller wetlands that are probably part of stormwater detention ponds that you can see just by the way that they're set aside as tracks. One of those, the one immediately to the south is about 500 feet to the south, and the one to the southeast is about 1,100 feet away. So for public services, if the area annexes, nothing changes. They currently receive fire service through Renton Fire Authority. That would continue. Currently receive water from Water District 90. That would continue. Renton Sewer, and then Issaquah School District are their service providers. King County land use designation, it's designated with urban residential medium, allowing for a range between 4 and 12 dwelling units per acre. King County has it zoned with R4 zoning. Renton designations, so we designate all of the areas in our PAA with land use designations, and we've designated this with residential low density. And in some cases, we've pre-zoned annexation areas. In the East Plateau, we have pre-zoned. We did that in 2007, and so this was pre-zoned with R4 zoning that would become effective if the area annexes into the city. Our comprehensive plan policies regarding annexations say that we should promote annexation where and when it's in our best interests. We should support annexations where infrastructure and services allow for urban densities, and it would consolidate service providers or facilitate the efficient delivery of services, and that we should always consider the fiscal impacts for annexations. Under review board criteria, it uses regular boundaries. That's one of the things that they look at, that it not jump over things or include different things. This just uses regular parcel lines. That's adequate. It's a regular shape. It's a rectangle. It doesn't create illogical service areas. Those are all previously agreed to and remain unchanged. And then it's of an unincorporated area to a city that's urban, and Renton is an urban city. The fiscal analysis. Current conditions, there are 2 dwelling units with an estimated 6 residents. The future conditions, we assume that there is the capacity to possibly develop an additional 10 dwelling units. If that were to happen, that would have an estimated additional 28 residents. Costs would increase at 3.3% annually, and revenue 2.5% annually, with limited to sales tax, utility tax, and franchise fee. So if over the course of 10 years that area were to fully develop with those additional units, that's what we look at as both existing and then over the 10-year period. So the operating fund existing about $2,800 in revenues and about $1,800 in costs. At year 10, if it were fully built out, revenues would be about $19,000 and costs would be about $17,000. And then to capital and enterprise funds, revenues currently at about $850 with the costs at about $350, and then going to about $4,000 in revenue at year 10 and $3,200 almost in year 10 for costs. So comments, we always circulate these to all the departments of the city, and they review them and provide comments. And all those staff responded that this annexation that was a logical extension of their services and presented no concerns. So, to the request, the proponent has requested that that $5,000 fee be waived. If you remember, we adopted an annexation fee trying to incentivize larger annexations. So this one is smaller than 10 acres, that would trigger that $5,000 fee. If it was larger than 10 acres, the fee would be $2,500. And in this instance, the proponent actually made the request for, he'd been engaging with me via email and phone conversations about possibly doing this annexation, and then confirmed with me that he would like a legal description and a map prepared for the petition. We do that for the petitioners so that we make sure that it's all accurate and valid before it even starts the process. And he made that request December 22nd. And that was before we actually instituted the new fee January 1st. But we weren't able to get that legal description and map to him until after January 1st. And so in this one instance, staff does support the requested waiver of this annexation fee. And hopefully this will never happen again. In conclusion, the best interests and general welfare of the city are served by this annexation. It represents a logical extension of our services. It's consistent with our annexation policies, and it's consistent with Boundary Review Board criteria. So the administration recommends that council waive that annexation fees as the proponent requested, and that you authorize circulation of a 60% direct petition to annex, specifying that property owners accept our zoning and that they would assume their proportional share of our bonded indebtedness. That's all that I have.
Thank you, Angie. Any questions from council? Any correspondence?
No correspondence, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, this is a public meeting in regards to the annexation. I don't have anybody signed up to testify on that. Is there anybody here that wanted to testify on this?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Prince.
I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Prince, second by Mr. Pavoni, that we close the public meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. What's the wish of the council?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Prince.
I move that the council waive the annexation fee, authorize circulation of a 60% direct petition to annex, specifying that the property owners accept the city zoning and assume their proportional share of the city's existing bonded indebtedness.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Prince, second by Mr. Corman, that council concur with the staff's recommendation on the annexation. Any discussion or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Angie.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to administrative report, Mr. Covington.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, several items for you this week. We want to remind the public to join us tomorrow, June 6th, from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. at the Piazza Park in downtown Renton, as Mayor Law officially rings the opening bell to kick off the 16th season of the Renton Farmers Market. As in prior years, it'll be filled with fresh flowers and a bounty of farm fresh produce every Tuesday from 3 to 7. We'll start this Tuesday and go through September 26th. In addition to market fair, we got live music, tips from Grand Master Gardeners, cooking demonstrations, and children's activities. New this season, we'll also have food trucks and live music from buskers each week at Market West. And this year, again, we're proud to continue our Fresh Bucks incentive program, which offers a dollar-for-dollar match to be used on fresh produce for our SNAP shoppers. People can get more information on our Facebook page if they'd like that. We're also in the process of updating our bicycle and trails master plan. And later this month, June 27th, we'll have an open house from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Senior Activities Center. So get that on your calendar. In partnership with the school district and the Renton Police Department is donating one piece of athletic equipment to each Renton second grader between now and the end of the school year. So each child has a choice of a basketball, a wall ball, football, frisbee, or jump rope. The goal is to encourage physical fitness and social interaction, as well as provide time for the officers to visit with the children. Equipment is paid for with privately donated proceeds from our Return to Renton car show. And we also want to let the public know that they're welcome to join our Renton police officers at one of our Coffee with the Cops events. The objective of this is just to provide an opportunity for people to meet with our officers, to break down barriers, answer questions, voice concerns, and get to know the officers in your neighborhood. So this Wednesday, the Coffee with the Cops program will be from 5 to 7 p.m. at Everest Tea and Coffee House, which is located at 200 Southwest 43rd Street in Renton. Wanted to also let the public know, you've seen maybe some signs out already, but WashDOT continues to do a lot of construction activity relative to the intersection here on 167 and I-405. As part of that work, this Wednesday, they'll be closing the Talbot Road South, which is SR 515, both lanes, southbound and northbound, between the southbound I-405 off-ramp and the northbound I-405 ramp. Detour routes will be in place. We just want to let folks know that's a busy arterial, and so they'll need to pay attention. And then finally, we're moving towards July 4th, and we want to just remind the public that there is a fireworks ban in the city of Renton. No fireworks are allowed. We do have a great 4th of July fireworks show on the 4th. You're encouraged to come down to Coulon Park and enjoy that. There'll be more information on that. Well, on June 19th, we'll have our Regional Fire Authority representatives here to discuss more about the enforcement related to the ban this year. That is all, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Mr. Covington. Okay, moving on to audience comments. We have one person signed up to address the council. When I call your name, please come to the podium, give your name and city of residence for the record. You have 5 minutes, and the timer is next to the city clerk. So, Bill Hinkle.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. For the record, I'm Bill Hinkle. I represent the Rental Housing Association of Washington, which is a statewide association of 5,400 members. I think you all got a letter from us today. So, and Councilmember Perez, I just want to say that I'm glad that one of the older guys in Olympia married up. But anyway, that was just a little side. Forgive me, a little personal privilege there, but I'm very happy with the response we've gotten from your staff here, and also with the response and conversation I heard in the earlier meeting from each one of you in discussing the inspection program. It's really one of the things we like to do. We like to, this association is all about providing safe and affordable housing and being a community partner, really, with different organizations and governments. So we're really tickled that Chip and his staff has worked so hard with us. And I really don't want to take any more time. So if you have any questions for me, we look forward to working with them some more. So
That would be great.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Corman.
I would just like to thank you for being here tonight and for the good work that you do. I've seen some of your materials. I know that you do a lot of education of people when they go out and they purchase their first rental. I've seen the materials you give them, showing them, reminding them of all the laws that they need to comply with, and how hard they need to work to properly, everything from screening their tenants to having the correct lease and so forth. So you guys do a great job, and thank you for taking an interest in this.
thank you. Yeah, and we really appreciate the efforts on the staff here. They're doing great. So
Great. Thank you very much.
you.
Appreciate it. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. We have 8 items for council consideration. Are there any items a council member would like pulled for discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Pavoni.
I move that the council concur with the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Pavoni, second by Mr. Prince, that council concur with the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to unfinished business, Mr. Pavoni.
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Ms. Perez?
No finished business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Mr. McIrvin?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the Utilities Committee has 3 committee reports.
Hey, Utilities Committee report, latecomers agreement for the Varma Ram Southeast 132nd Street Sewer Extension. The Utilities Committee recommends concurrence in the staff recommendation to grant preliminary approval of the application for a latecomers agreement request from Kushal S. Varma and Kajal A. Ram, petitioners for a period of 2 years. The application for a latecomers agreement was submitted to recover the $188,408 estimated cost of sewer extension along Southeast 132nd Street, west of 156th Avenue Southeast, so that adjacent properties will be required to share in the cost at such time that they benefit from the sewer main. The committee further recommends that the council authorize the preliminary assessment roll to be forwarded to the city clerk, who will notify the affected property owners. If no protests are received, after construction of the facilities and approval of the final costs, council can authorize preparation of the final assessment roll and latecomer agreement. In the event there is a protest for valid cause, a public hearing will be held to resolve any issues prior to proceeding with this matter. This is signed by the committee chair and members.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. McGurran.
I move that the council concur with the Utilities Committee report.
Second?
Been moved by Mr. McGurran, second by Ms. Perez, that council concur with the Utilities Committee report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Okay, the next agreement is for a franchise with MCI Metro. The Utilities Committee recommends concurrence in the staff recommendation to adopt an ordinance granting a 10-year franchise agreement with MCI Metro as a purveyor of broadband telecommunication services within the city of Renton. This is signed by the committee chair and members.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. McGurran.
I move that the council concur with the Utilities Committee report.
Second?
It's been moved by Mr. McGurran, second by Ms. Perez, that council concur with the Utilities Committee report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Okay, the final Utilities Committee report is regarding the Southwest Langston Road Street Vacation, VAC 16002. The Utilities Committee recommends concurrence in the staff recommendation to accept the appraisal and set compensation for street vacation petition VAC-16-002 at $0 for an approximately 9,543 square foot portion of Southwest Langston Road. Additionally, the Utility Committee recommends the ordinance regarding this matter be prepared and presented for first reading when completed, and compensation, including all applicable filing and processing fees, are received by the city. This is signed by the chair and committee members.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. McGurran.
Yes, the council may remember this was the sliver of road on Langston that was kind of inaccurately drawn as far as the right-of-way goes. And so we're just basically, rather than charge the property owners along there for the property they pretty much always thought was theirs, it seems the right thing to do would just be to go ahead and recognize that. So with that, I will move that the council concur with the Utilities Committee report.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. McGurran, second by Mr. Corman, that council concur with the Utilities Committee report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, moving on to Ms. Witchy.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the Community Services Committee has 2 committee reports.
Okay, Community Services Committee report, appointment to Library Advisory Board, Jamie Green. The Community Services Committee recommends concurrence in the staff recommendation to confirm Mayor Law's appointment of Jamie Green to the Library Advisory Board for a term expiring September 1st, 2021. This is signed by the committee chair and members.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Ms. Witchy.
I move that council concur with the recommendation of the Community Services Committee.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Witchy, seconded by Mr. McGurran, that council concur with the Community Services Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Ms. Jamie Green is here tonight,
Yeah.
so I thought we would introduce her real quickly.
That would be
That's
great.
okay?
Yeah,
Meet Jamie?
yeah,
Jamie?
in fact, why don't,
And our Library Advisory Board is here
yeah,
as
let's
well.
have the advisory board stand up and be seen on the camera. That's great. We're glad that you're here. Jamie, we won't put you on the spot, but thanks for joining us. Okay.
Okay, I have another Community Services Committee report. Appointments to the Renton Municipal Arts Commission, Samick and Gao. The Community Services Committee recommends concurrence in the staff recommendation to confirm Mayor Law's appointments to the Renton Municipal Arts Commission of David Samick for a term expiring December 31st, 2019, and Sue Gao for a term expiring December 31st, 2017. This is signed by the committee chair and members.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Ms. Witchy.
I move that council concur with the recommendation of the Community Services Committee.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Witchy, second by Mr. McGurran, that council concur with the Community Services Committee report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Neither of those
Okay,
members are here.
thank you. Let's see, Don's gone. Mr. Prince.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the Planning and Development Committee has some committee reports.
Okay, Planning and Development Committee Committee Report, Title IV, Docket 12B. The Planning and Development Committee concurs with the Staff and Planning Commission recommendation to adopt the 2016 Title IV Docket Group 12B. The Planning and Development Committee further recommends that ordinances for the items listed below be prepared and presented for first reading when they are complete. Items D-135, undergrounding, and D-140, small cell and distributed antenna systems, have been held for further review and study. This is signed by the committee chair and alternate members.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Prince.
I move that the council concur with the Planning and Development Committee report.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Prince, seconded by Mr. McIrvin. The council concur with the Planning and Development Committee report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Okay, the next is regarding shopping cart regulations. The Planning and Development Committee recommends concurrence in the staff recommendation superseding the committee report dated April 24, 2017, to approve the following code amendments. Fine waivers. The administrator may defer up to 3 fines within a month. However, should a store be cited for a 4th occurrence within a month, then the 3 initially deferred fines will be issued in addition to subsequent infractions within the month. Fine deferrals will occur if both of the following conditions are true. The required identification sign, if affixed to the cart. I think is affixed to the cart. The business identified by the identification sign has implemented security measures as defined to prevent removal of shopping carts from the business's property. Define security measures as including but not limited to utilization of a cart patrol and retrieval company, electronically activated self-braking wheels, poles mounted to shopping carts which prevent the removal from the interior of a retail establishment, dedicated security personnel, and other measures deemed appropriate and effective by the administrator. Eliminate the retrieval fee, $25, which is different than the impoundment fine of $100, because the purpose of the regulations is to reduce the presence of abandoned carts and not to create obstacles for these business owners to retrieve and utilize their carts. The Planning and Development Committee further recommends that the ordinance regarding this matter be prepared and presented for first reading when it's complete. This is signed by the committee chair and members.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Prince.
I move that the council concur with the recommendation of the Planning and Development Committee.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Prince, seconded by Mr. McIrvin, that council concur with the Planning and Development Committee report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. I want to thank Community and Economic Development staff for working on our shopping cart ordinance, and Public Works staff, too, that have been helping out with that. Our goal has always been to eliminate all the dumped carts that we find throughout the community, but not to penalize the stores. And working with most of the grocers, they have really been, working really hard with us to meet this objective, and we have dramatically reduced the number of abandoned carts that you normally find on city streets, and so we appreciate all the work that's gone into this. Okay, Jason.
Okay, final Planning and Development Committee report. City Center Community Plan Amendment. The Planning and Development Committee concurs with the staff and Planning Commission recommendation to amend Implementation Strategy 833 of the City Center Community Plan to add the sentence, "The city shall not utilize eminent domain in furtherance of this strategy." The Planning and Development Committee further recommends that a resolution adopting the amendment be prepared and presented for first reading when it is complete. This is signed by the committee chair and members.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Prince.
as you all well know, we had some members of the community come, and they took some issues with a section of our City Center Community Plan. This committee reports to help address that and assuage some of those fears. So I move the council concur in the Planning and Development Committee report.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Prince, second by Mr. Corman, that council concur with the Planning and Development Committee report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Corman?
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, moving on to legislation, we have 9 ordinances this evening.
Okay, the first ordinance is docket 128, pet daycare docket. An ordinance of the City of Renton amending sections 4260 and 4280 of Chapter 2, Section 4410 of Chapter 4, Section 4930 of Chapter 9, 411, 110, 160, and 220 of Chapter 11, definitions of Title 4, and Section 873 of Chapter 7, noise level regulations of Title 8, health and sanitation of the city code regarding pet daycares.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Prince.
I move the ordinance be placed on second and final reading at the next council meeting.
Second?
Been moved by Mr. Prince, seconded by Mr. Corman, that this ordinance be placed on second and final reading at the next council meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
The next ordinance is docket 129, Municipal Arts Commission. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, amending Chapter 8, Municipal Arts Commission of Title II of the Commissions and Boards of City Code, updating and clarifying code language related to the Renton Municipal Arts Commission.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Prince.
I move the ordinance be placed on second and final reading at the next council meeting.
Second?
It's been moved by Mr. Prince, seconded by Mr. Corman, that this ordinance be placed on second and final reading at the next council meeting. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
The next is docket 130, Light Intensity Commercial. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, amending sections 4260 and 4280 of Chapter 2, 43100 of Chapter 3, and 41150 and 411190 of Chapter 11, Title 4, Development Regulations of City Code, amending the regulations related to low-intensity commercial uses in the R14 and RMF zones.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Prince.
I move the ordinance be placed on second and final reading at the next council meeting.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Prince, seconded by Mr. Pavoni, that this ordinance be placed on second and final reading at the next council meeting. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
The next ordinance regarding docket 131, tree retention and land clearing. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, amending sections 44130 of Chapter 4, 49195 of Chapter 9, and that's it, of City Code, clarifying review criteria of routine vegetation management permits.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Prince.
I move the ordinance be placed on second and final reading at the next council meeting.
Second?
It's been moved by Mr. Prince, seconded by Mr. Corman, that this ordinance be placed on second and final reading at the next council meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Make sure. Yeah, I think that's right. Sorry, just one second.
That's okay.
Right away. Okay, so, yeah, it's in here. Next one is D133, interpretive code, administrative code interpretations. So, an ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, amending sections 4190 of Chapter 1, 4280, 100, 110, 115, 120, and 130 of Chapter 2, 4440, 4470, 4480, 44100, and 44130 of Chapter 4, 4660 of Chapter 6, 47150 of Chapter 7, 4880 and 48120 of Chapter 8, 4930, 4970, 49150, 49200, 49240 of Chapter 9, and 41110, 20, 180, 190, 200, and 250 of Chapter 11, definitions of Title 4 of City Code, codifying administrative code interpretations from December 8, 2015 to December 6, 2016, including adding a definition of attic and amending the definitions of building height, retail sales, outdoor, tract, and yard requirement.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Prince.
I move the ordinance be placed on second and final reading at the next council meeting.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Prince, seconded by Mr. Pavoni, that this ordinance be placed on second and final reading at the next council meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay, the next is D134, clustering provisions. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, amending sections 4220 and 42110 of Chapter 2 zoning districts of City Code, amending the cluster development regulations.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Prince.
I move the ordinance be placed on second and final reading at the next council meeting.
Second?
Been moved by Mr. Prince, seconded by Mr. McIrvin, that this ordinance be placed on second and final reading at the next council meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
All right. All right, the next ordinance is regarding shopping carts. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, amending Section 627.3 and 627.5 of City Code by adding definitions of cart patrol and retrieval company and security measures, clarifying shopping cart regulations, allowing the administrator to waive fines under certain conditions, providing for severability and severability, and establishing an effective date.
Mr. Mayor,
I'll let Jay-
Yes, Mr. Prince.
I move the ordinance be placed on second and final reading at the next council meeting.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Prince, second by Mr. Corman, that this ordinance be placed on second and final reading at the next council meeting. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
Okay, the next one, vacating a portion of right-of-way on Southwest Langston Road. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, vacating a portion of right-of-way on Southwest Langston Road located near the intersection of Southwest Langston Road and Stevens Avenue Southwest. This is VAC 16002.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. McIrvin.
I move that the ordinance be placed on second and final reading at the next council meeting.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. McIrvin, second by Ms. Perez, that this ordinance be placed on second and final reading at the next council meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
All right, final one, MCI Metro franchise agreement. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, granting unto MCI Metro Access Transmission Services Corporation, doing business as Verizon Access Transmission Services, a Delaware corporation authorized to do business within the state of Washington, its affiliates, successors, and assigns the right, privilege, and authority to install communication facilities, specifically fiber optic cable and related appurtenances, under, along, over, below, through, and across the streets, avenues, and alleys of the City of Renton within the public right-of-way of Renton.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. McIrvin.
I move that the ordinance be placed on second and final reading at the next council meeting.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. McIrvin, second by Ms. Perez, that this ordinance be placed on second and final reading at the next council meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Good job, Jason. You only have to do it all again next week.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Only with roll calls.
Yeah, so you'll have to have roll calls. If you can convince the city attorney to just roll them all into one, good luck. Okay, new business. Mr. Pavoni.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have one meeting to announce. Monday, June 12th, Committee of the Whole will meet in the Conferencing Center. We have two items. The first one is Parks, Trails, Community Facilities Initiative. And then we will be moving to council chambers at 6 p.m. for the second portion, which will be Quindle Terminals Development Agreement. That is all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Perez.
No new business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Mr. McIrvin.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just want to announce that the Utilities Committee that would have occurred on June 8th has been canceled.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Witchy.
No new business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Mr. Prince.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have a few items to announce. Planning Development Committee meetings being held on Thursday, June 8th at 4 p.m. in the council conference room. We have 5 items on the agenda. The City Center Plan Advisory Board, the 2017 Comprehensive Plan Amendments, Landmark Preservation, Quindle Terminals Development Agreement, it's a briefing, and emerging issues in CED. Also wanted to announce for everyone the Downtown Design Day and Farmers Market kickoff on tomorrow from 3 to 7 p.m. at the Renton Pavilion Center, 233 Burnett Avenue South. And then lastly, I'd like to move that we refer the matter of safe and healthy housing into Planning and Development Committee.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Prince, second by Mr. Corman, that the topic of safe and healthy housing be referred to the Planning and Development Committee. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, are you going to announce finance?
Oh, gosh. Yes. I keep forgetting Don's not here. Yes, and finance. At 4 p.m. on June 12th, Monday, in the council conference room, we've got the fleet purchase request requiring budget adjustments, the Coulon Park facility repairs consulting contract, Sunset Neighborhood Park Phase 1 consulting contract, bond right refinancing, vouchers, of course, and emerging issues and revenue streams. That is all, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Corman.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to announce that the Public Safety Committee, which normally would have been held, a meeting which would have been held on June 12th, has been canceled. And then, Mr. Mayor, I'd also like to ask if, at some point, if we could get a briefing from the administration on discussions going on with Sound Transit funding. There's been a couple of issues that have come out. Obviously, the car tax is of great concern to everybody, and I know there's some bills on that. And I just want to make sure that no matter what happens, that we don't lose those elements that we have gotten from Sound Transit.
Absolutely. In fact, we were discussing that today. Mr. Covington, we have a,
June 19th, we've scheduled some time, Council President scheduled some time for Sound Transit and Metro to come and provide an update
Okay.
on projects related to Renton.
So we'll
and I'm
have
sure we'll
those.
make sure they talk about
Very
that
good.
too.
Okay, thanks.
okay,
Yep. That's all, Mr.
that's
Mayor.
it? Okay, what's the wish of the council?
Move we adjourn?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Prince, seconded by Ms. Witchy that we adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? We're adjourned.